Have you guys ever played a game that was so brutally difficult it made you want to throw your controller against the wall? Now, I've been playing video games for a very long time, and not to brag, but I think I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I'm not gonna win any Evo tournaments, but I'm better than the average player. I believe in quick reflexes and careful timing to take down impossible bosses. I don't rage quit, and I see every loss as an opportunity to grow and become better. But every so often, a game comes along that makes me go, this game. Like, a game really has to be damn near impossible for me to even consider giving up. It's a shame because I went into this game with high hopes, thinking they had finally gotten the Souls-like formula right. I mean, it was damn near perfect up into the halfway point. So, what happened? My first reaction to this game was the strange name. Lies of P? Like, what? What does that even mean? Upon closer inspection, it turns out the game is actually based on the story of Pinocchio. You know, the Disney animated movie about the wooden puppet? I guess that's where the P comes from. However, in this game, he's a robotic puppet, and the story isn't as cheery. In fact, it's actually quite dark. But then again, couldn't you argue the Disney version was dark in its own sort of way? Your adventure starts with you waking up in an abandoned train, only to find the city overrun by crazed, murdering puppets. You must now set out to find your creator, Geppetto, and save the last remaining human population. This might be a long stretch, and I'm probably reaching with this one, but I couldn't help stop thinking of Mega Man as I was playing. You know, the blue robot with the Mega Buster? The developers, Neowiz Games and Round 8 Studio, did an impeccable job creating a world for you to explore and get lost in. It really does feel like you were just dropped in a bleak, ravaged, war-torn city. And unlike similar games of the genre, the levels feel more like actual levels. They don't feel so much like giant arenas with enemies thrown in. Also, items and objects are scattered in a way that makes you think of how they got to be. The rundown shops and scattered bodies littering the streets give a sense of the destruction and chaos that took place. It's like everything you look at appears to have some sort of story or history behind it. There's also a little bit of that creepy, unnerving element as well. For example, you can see the silhouette of a woman sitting by a window mourning the loss of her child. Like, come on. I can't be the only one here that didn't think she was going to reach out and pull you through the window. In my opinion, Liza P is a masterclass in how to create a world that evokes emotion simply through player exploration. Hotel Krat might act as a central hub, but feels more like your one and only refuge from the horrors of the outside world. Maybe it's the warm, glowing light. Maybe it's the fact that very few people know of its existence. Or maybe it's the one song that plays during your visit. In terms of immersion, there's just so much that Liza P does right. 2 graphical options are available. Well, 3 if you count the 40 FPS mode. Typically, you're given the choice of quality or performance. Quality gives you a full 4K image at 30 FPS, and performance comes in at 1800p with a locked 60 FPS. My advice? Go with performance. It's the default setting when you first start the game, and it's the one that offers the smoothest experience. Otherwise, visual assets are identical regardless of whatever graphic settings you choose. And although the game looks beautiful either way, quality mode just feels downright sluggish. Trust me. Go with performance. The city of Krat is brought to life with moody lighting and impeccable detail. There's a haunting quality to the art design as it portrays a city that was just ripped apart by its own ignorance. Great environmental weather effects and character design draw you into the city of Krat even further. The biggest surprise, however, is how the look of the game suddenly does a complete 180 halfway through. I'm like, what is this? The Last of Us? Gameplay takes heavy inspiration from titles like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. Lies of P can be classified as Souls-like, which basically means the game is hard as hell. And for the most part, it's true. This game is tough. I always shudder when I hear a game being compared to Dark Souls, because I know I'm going to be dying a lot. However, unlike the game I compared it to, Lies of P does make a few accommodations to help those new to this type of genre. Smaller, more condensed environments with frequent save points and shortcuts help alleviate some of the frustration. The use of star fragments provide aid in tough boss encounters, and a fun new mechanic that allows you to equip your arm with different gadgets. There's a grappling hook that pulls enemies in closer to you, another one that shoots a sticky grenade, and even one with a flamethrower attached to it. Of course, each arm can be upgraded further with even more moves. In addition, there's also an item you can equip that takes you straight back to your last checkpoint without you having to backtrack through the entire level. Unfortunately, even with everything I mentioned, this game is still tough, and in my opinion, it's mainly due to the perfect guard mechanic. Yup, you knew this was coming. You can block enemy attacks in this game, but there are certain moves you can't block. These are known as Fury attacks, and you'll know it's coming when the enemy glows red. Fury attacks can only be countered with a perfect guard, and when they say perfect, they're not kidding, because the timing to pull this move off is very strict. We're talking frame perfect here. You can also perfect guard regular attacks, but they're still hard as hell to pull off. Alternatively, you can do a dodge at the right time to avoid an attack entirely. Ugh. That's another thing I don't want to get into. To be honest, the game's difficulty wasn't terrible. Sure, there were some close encounters, but most of the time, you can avoid enemies by running past them. Levels were tough, but you usually had enough resources at your disposal to make it through most situations. And even if you weren't too good at the perfect guard, most bosses at this point had very telegraphic moves, which provided the perfect learning opportunity. So everything was pretty good at this point. The game's difficulty was just perfect in my opinion. Difficult, but approachable, and with just the right amount of challenge. That is until you get to the Archbishop fight. Oh my god. This is probably the defining point in the game that will determine whether you want to keep playing or give up and move on to something else. It actually wouldn't be so bad if there wasn't a second part to the fight. Yes, there's two parts to this fight. You'll find yourself spending all your resources on the first part, only to have nothing left in the second. Attack patterns are not only sporadic, but hard to see, simply because the boss takes up the entire screen. I hate these type of bosses because he'll swing his arm to attack you, but you won't see it because it's coming from the other side of the screen. I cannot stress enough how important it is to be able to perfect guard at this point. It is a must. And his second form? Good lord. Of course, this is when they introduce one-hit kills. I mean, why not? I think the reason why I hated this second form was because it was virtually impossible to perfect guard at this point. It was just so hard to see what was happening on screen. You pretty much had to go into this second form having a full bar of health without having used any of your resources prior. What a stupid boss fight. I mean, the guy attacks from the front and end? Like, what the f? I couldn't tell you how many times I lost to this boss. There were moments when I would just put the controller down because of just how ridiculous it was. There were even times when I just started laughing to myself. Now, I'm not one to rage quit, and I consider myself quite a calm person, but there was one instance that just made me want to throw my controller. Of course, my OCD would not allow me to give up, and after many failed attempts, I was finally able to pull it off. Unfortunately, I don't think many gamers out there have that kind of patience, and that's completely fine. The game isn't for you. I think if you've got perseverance, you should definitely check out Lies of P. I know I was bitching about the Archbishop fight, but the game really does a lot of things right. There's a great story underneath it all, with interesting characters you don't usually meet in these type of games. The combat is also fun, difficult but rewarding, and the Legion arm attachments add an extra element to the swordplay. There's also a lying system that lets you decide whether to tell the truth or not during certain character interactions, which can alter the game's ending. Your mileage may vary on this one, but it's a neat little feature I haven't seen before in other games. There's also various weapons to use, so you get to choose which style of combat works best for you. Of course, the best thing of all, I'm told there was an update to help balance out the difficulty. I think that Archbishop boss was given less health or something. Can anyone verify this? I'm not sure how much easier it is after the update since I played it before it was released, but the fact that there's even an update lets you know the developers are aware of the game's difficulty. I think the one aspect I really enjoyed about this game, and one reason why I think you should play it, is for its tone and atmosphere. It's a game that doesn't rely entirely on its gameplay, but also on its narrative and storytelling. If anything else, that alone is worth a ticket of admission. And that, my friend, is no lie.